The wind howled like a beast in agony, slamming against the windows with a force that made the glass tremble. The sky had turned into a furious shade of gray, thick storm clouds swallowing the last remnants of daylight. Rain pelted the earth in violent sheets, drowning the streets in a flood of chaos. Inside the small house at the edge of town, the Jensen family remained unaware that their lives were about to change forever. Jackson Jensen, a former firefighter, stood by the kitchen stove, the warm glow of the fire flickering against his rugged face as he stirred a pot of soup. Across the room, his wife Claire moved swiftly, setting plates on the wooden table while their 7-year-old daughter Lily sat on the floor, lost in her world of crayons and paper. The storm outside was just another winter tantrum, nothing they hadn't seen before. But then something changed. A deep, guttural noise pierced the storm, almost swallowed by the howling wind. It wasn't thunder. It wasn't the groaning of tree branches fighting the gale. It was something else. Something alive. Lily's crayon stopped mid-stroke. Her tiny head snapped toward the window, her bright blue eyes widening in fear. "Mommy?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Something's outside." Claire frowned, glancing toward the darkened window. "Probably just the wind, sweetheart," she reassured. But Lily wasn't convinced. She slowly rose to her feet, her small hands pressing against the glass. And then it came again. Louder this time. A scratching. Desperate. Clawing. Claire stiffened. Jackson put down the ladle, his firefighter instincts kicking in as he strode toward the front door. "Stay back," he ordered, his voice firm. He grabbed a flashlight from the counter and turned the doorknob, pausing as a powerful gust of wind nearly wrenched it from his grasp. Rain and cold air blasted inside, making Claire gasp as she wrapped an arm around Lily. But Jackson wasn't focused on the storm anymore. His breath caught in his throat. There, sprawled across the doorstep, was a massive German shepherd. Its fur was soaked, matted with mud and blood. One of its sides bore a deep, jagged wound, raw and ugly, the kind that didn't come from an accident. The dog's breathing was ragged, uneven. It lifted its head weakly, locking eyes with Jackson, haunted, pleading, desperate. "Oh my God," Claire whispered, pulling Lily back. "Jackson, that dog, it's hurt." But Lily was already moving forward, slipping from her mother's grasp before anyone could stop her. She knelt beside the creature, her small hands hovering just above its trembling body. "He's not just hurt," she said softly. "He's dying." The storm roared behind them, but the true battle was lying at their feet, and none of them knew it yet. But this dog had come for a reason that could save their lives or destroy them. Jackson crouched beside the wounded dog, his trained hands instinctively scanning over its body. The jagged wound on its side was deep, too deep. Blood mixed with rainwater, pooling on the wooden porch. The dog shuddered violently, its breath coming in sharp, painful gasps. "Jackson, we don't know where it came from," Claire warned, her voice tense. "What if it's sick? What if it's dangerous?" But Jackson wasn't listening. His gaze locked onto the dog's eyes, deep amber, filled with something more than pain, fear, desperation, pleading. "This dog didn't just get lost in the storm," Jackson murmured. "Something happened to it." Lily knelt beside him, unafraid. Her small hand reached out, pressing gently against the dog's head. The German shepherd didn't flinch, didn't growl. Instead, it let out a low, pitiful whimper, leaning into her touch. "He's scared," Lily whispered. We have to help him. Jackson hesitated. The logical side of him screamed no. Taking in an injured stray, especially one this large, was a risk. But his gut told him something different. Something about this dog, this moment, felt important. Claire's voice was sharp with worry. Jackson, if it has rabies or... It doesn't, he interrupted. It's not aggressive. If we leave it out here, it's dead by morning. Lightning flashed, illuminating the porch for a split second. In that moment, Jackson saw it. Something on the dog's collar. A tag. He carefully reached forward, fingers brushing against the worn leather. The dog barely reacted, too weak to resist. The tag was scratched, rusted, but he could still make out the name. Titan. Jackson frowned. There was no address, no phone number, just the name. That was strange. Most pet tags had contact information. Why didn't this one? A fresh gust of wind sent rain splattering onto their faces. They couldn't stay out here. Help me carry him inside, Jackson said, making his decision. Claire stiffened. Jackson, he'll die if we don't, he insisted. We'll keep him in the laundry room for now. First thing in the morning, we'll call the vet. He slid his arms under Titan's massive frame. The dog whimpered but didn't resist. He was too light for a dog his size. Undernourished. Weak. How long had he been on his own? As Jackson carried Titan through the doorway, something strange happened. The moment they crossed the threshold, Titan's body shuddered, and for a brief second, his amber eyes snapped open. Alert. Wild. Lily gasped. He knows. He knows we're safe now. Claire watched, uneasy. Or we just let something in that we shouldn't have. Jackson ignored her as he gently placed Titan on a blanket near the heater. The dog exhaled shakily, his body finally relaxing. Lily knelt beside him again, stroking his matted fur. It's okay, Titan. You're home now. Jackson grabbed the first aid kit, but as he opened it, a chill ran down his spine. There were claw marks on Titan's collar. Deep, deliberate gouges, as if someone had tried to rip it off. Someone who didn't want him to be found. And that meant Titan wasn't just a lost dog. Someone had wanted him dead. The wind continued to hammer against the house, rattling the windows like a trapped animal trying to claw its way inside. But inside the small laundry room, the storm wasn't the biggest threat anymore. Jackson stared at the deep claw marks on Titan's collar, his heart pounding. This wasn't normal wear and tear. Someone had deliberately tried to remove this collar, and not gently. Someone wanted to erase Titan's identity. He turned the tag over in his fingers, searching for anything else. No phone number. No address. Just the name, etched into the worn metal. Titan. Claire stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching his every move. Jackson, I need you to say it, she said, her voice tight. I need you to admit that something about this isn't right. Jackson exhaled sharply, placing the tag down. Yeah, it's not right. Claire's eyes darkened. Then why did you bring him in? Jackson turned his gaze to Titan, lying motionless on the blanket. The dog's chest rose and fell in shallow, labored breaths. Lily sat beside him, her tiny fingers gently brushing over his damp fur. Titan didn't flinch, didn't growl, he just let her. Because he trusts us, Jackson murmured. Claire shook her head. That dog didn't just get lost. Look at him, Jackson. He's starving. He's injured. Someone hurt him. Someone left him to die. Jackson already knew that. And yet there was something else gnawing at the edge of his thoughts. A feeling he couldn't shake. Titan wasn't just running from something. He had been running toward them. Lily yawned, resting her head lightly on Titan's side. "Can I sleep here with him?" Claire's face twisted in worry. "Absolutely not." Jackson hesitated. "Lily, go get your blanket. We'll check on him in the morning, okay?" The little girl nodded sleepily and disappeared down the hall. Claire sighed, rubbing her temples. "You don't see it, do you?" Jackson looked up. "See what?" Claire lowered her voice. "Lily. She's acting like she's known him forever." Jackson's stomach clenched. Because she's not wrong. The way Titan reacted to Lily, as if he had been looking for her. The way she immediately trusted him, no hesitation, none of it made sense. Titan shifted slightly, his eyes fluttering open just a sliver. And in that moment, Jackson swore something passed between them. Not just recognition, something deeper. Titan knew him. A shiver ran down Jackson's spine. He shook it off and focused on the wound instead. The edges were jagged, raw, too clean for an animal attack. This was man-made. A knife. He exhaled through his nose. "Tomorrow morning I'll call the vet." Claire nodded but didn't look convinced. "And if nobody's looking for him?" Jackson didn't answer. Because deep down, he already knew the truth. Nobody was looking for Titan. Because whoever hurt him wanted him gone. The night stretched on. The storm finally died down, but unease still hung in the air. At exactly 2:47 a.m., Claire stirred awake. Something was wrong. She sat up, listening. The house was silent except for the soft hum of the heater. Jackson slept beside her, undisturbed. But then she heard it. A noise. A low, scraping sound, coming from outside. Her blood turned to ice. Slowly, she slid out of bed and crept toward the window, careful not to make a sound. She pulled the curtain back just an inch and peered outside. The street was empty. The porch was still wet from the storm, but the gate to their backyard? It was wide open. Claire's breath hitched. That gate had been locked. Her heart pounded as she turned, moving as fast as she dared. She shook Jackson's shoulder, her voice urgent. "Jackson, wake up!" His eyes opened immediately. He saw her face. He heard the terror in her voice. He was on his feet in an instant. "There's someone outside!" Jackson grabbed the baseball bat from the closet and moved swiftly toward the hallway. Claire followed close behind, every nerve in her body screaming. A creak. The back porch. Jackson reached the kitchen door and froze. The back door handle was moving. Someone was trying to get inside. Claire sucked in a breath, grabbing the phone with shaking hands. She hit 911, whispering urgently, "There's someone trying to break into our house." Titan's ears twitched. Then, he lifted his head. Jackson glanced at him just as the dog's eyes snapped open. Titan's entire body went rigid. Then he growled. A deep, guttural, deadly growl. Lily stirred in the laundry room, groggy. "What's wrong?" Titan stood up. His legs were shaky, but his posture had changed. He wasn't weak anymore. He was alert, listening. Another sound, a heavy thud against the door. Titan let out a bark, ferocious, sharp, unrelenting. Then, before Jackson could stop him, Titan launched himself at the door. And outside, someone ran. Jackson yanked the door open just in time to see a dark figure vanish into the night. Heavy boots pounded against the wet ground, splashing through puddles as the intruder sprinted toward the street. Titan lunged forward, snarling, but his weakened body couldn't keep up. His legs trembled, and he stumbled before Jackson grabbed his collar. "Easy, boy," Jackson whispered, his grip firm but gentle. Claire's voice was sharp with fear. "Did you see them?" Jackson's jaw tightened as he scanned the yard. The gate swayed on its hinges, creaking in the wind. The muddy footprints leading from the fence to their back door sent a sickening chill down his spine. Someone had been watching them. The 911 dispatcher's voice crackled through the phone in Claire's trembling hands. "Officers are on the way. Stay inside." Lily's small voice cut through the tension. Titan scared him away. Jackson turned to his daughter, who was now standing in the doorway, barefoot and sleepy-eyed. Titan stood protectively in front of hers, his body tense, his breath labored, but determined. Jackson crouched beside the dog, running a hand through his matted fur. "You saved us, boy," he murmured. Titan's tail gave a single, slow wag. Claire locked the back door, double-checking the deadbolt. "Jackson, this isn't random. Whoever that was, they weren't just looking to rob us." Jackson nodded grimly. "They came for Titan." Lily frowned, hugging herself. But why? The question hung in the air, heavy and unanswered. Titan let out a low, unsettled whimper and turned toward the front window. His ears flicked forward, his body stiffened, and then 3 sharp knocks. Jackson's blood turned to ice. Claire gasped. "That's not the police!" Titan moved first, placing himself between the door and Lily. His hackles raised. His lips curled back, revealing sharp white teeth. His growl was low and deadly. Jackson motioned for Claire to take Lily upstairs. "Go. Now." She hesitated for half a second before scooping Lily into her arms and hurrying toward the stairs. Jackson grabbed the bat and approached the door, his heart pounding against his ribs. The porch light flickered from the rain, casting eerie shadows through the frosted glass. Another knock. Slower this time. Deliberate. Jackson inhaled sharply, then yanked the door open. A man stood there, tall, thin, his face partially hidden under a hood, raindrops sliding down his sharp jaw. But it wasn't his soaked clothes or his piercing gaze that made Jackson's stomach churn. It was his smile. "Nice dog," the man said, his voice smooth as oil. "Looks like he found himself a new home." Titan snarled. The man didn't flinch. Jackson tightened his grip on the bat. "You lost?" The man chuckled. "Not at all!" He tilted his head slightly, eyes flicking to Titan. "That's a valuable animal you've got there." Jackson's pulse pounded in his ears. "He's not for sale." The man's grin widened. "Oh, I know." His voice dropped to a chilling whisper. "That's why I came to take him back." Titan's growl deepened. His entire body coiled like a loaded spring. His amber eyes locked onto the man's, unblinking, knowing. Jackson took a step forward, putting himself between Titan and the stranger. "Get off my porch." The man exhaled through his nose, amused. "You have no idea what you've just brought into your home, do you?" Jackson's muscles tensed. "I said, leave." The man held up his hands in mock surrender. All right, I'll go." He took a step back, still smiling. But a dog like that, he doesn't just disappear. People will come looking. A car engine rumbled to life somewhere down the street. The man turned and walked away, disappearing into the rain. Jackson slammed the door shut and locked it. His breath came fast and sharp. Claire appeared at the top of the stairs. "Who was it?" Jackson exhaled slowly. "Trouble." Titan let out a soft whine, his gaze still fixed on the door. Lily whispered from behind her mother, "He knows that man." Jackson turned to his daughter. "What?" Lily hugged the banister, eyes round and serious. "Titan knows him, and he's scared." Claire shivered. "Jackson, what if Titan didn't just run away?" Jackson met Titan's eyes. What if Titan hadn't been running from something? What if he had been escaping? And what if that man wasn't done chasing him? Jackson barely slept that night. Every noise made his muscles coil with tension. Every shadow outside the window felt like a lurking threat. The stranger's words echoed in his mind. "People will come looking." But why? Titan wasn't just any lost dog. Someone wanted him back. Someone was willing to chase him down in the middle of the night for reasons Jackson didn't yet understand. By morning, the rain had stopped, but the unease remained. Claire sipped her coffee at the kitchen table, dark circles under her eyes. "We need to take him to the vet today," she said, her voice firm. "Find out if he has a chip, if he belongs to someone." Jackson nodded. "Agreed." Titan lay curled near Lily's feet, his amber eyes flicking toward the door every few minutes, as if he expected something or someone. Lily absent-mindedly ran her fingers through his fur. "He doesn't want to go to the vet," she murmured. Jackson frowned. "What do you mean?" Lily looked up, her expression eerily serious for a 7-year-old. "He's scared they'll take him away." Claire and Jackson exchanged an uneasy glance. Claire set her mug down. "Sweetheart, did you have a dream about Titan?" Lily nodded. "He showed me." Jackson's pulse quickened. "Showed you what?" Lily hesitated, like she wasn't sure if she should say. Then, in a soft voice, she whispered, "The bad man." The air in the room seemed to freeze. Jackson knelt beside her. "Lily, the man from last night?" Lily's lower lip trembled, and she shook her head. "Not just him. There were others." Jackson's stomach twisted. Claire exhaled shakily. "Lily, baby, what do you mean, others?" Lily looked down at Titan, stroking his ears gently. "They hurt him," she whispered, "and they're still looking for him." Jackson inhaled deeply, forcing himself to stay calm. It was just a dream, just a little girl's imagination, stirred by the fear of last night. But then Titan did something that made every hair on Jackson's neck stand up. The dog, this battered, injured German shepherd, nuzzled Lily's hand and whined softly, as if to say, "She's right." Claire's voice was barely above a whisper. "Jackson, what the hell is going on?" He had no answer. But one thing was certain. They needed to find out who Titan really was, and fast. The veterinary clinic smelled of antiseptic and wet fur. Jackson sat stiffly in the waiting room, Claire beside him, her fingers drumming anxiously against her knee. Lily sat cross-legged on the floor, Titan's head resting in her lap. Despite the other animals in the room, Titan was still, watching, waiting. Dr. Patel, a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes and a warm smile, knelt beside him. "He's a beautiful boy," she said, gently inspecting Titan's bandaged wound. "You said he showed up on your doorstep?" Jackson nodded. "During the storm, we don't know where he came from." Dr. Patel hummed, running a handheld scanner over Titan's shoulders. They waited. A small beep sounded. She frowned at the screen. That's odd. Jackson tensed. What? Dr. Patel adjusted the scanner, tried again. Another beep. She sighed. He has a microchip, she said. But it's unreadable. The data's corrupted. Claire leaned forward. You mean it was damaged? Dr. Patel hesitated. It's possible, but usually chips don't just corrupt on their own. She glanced at Titan's worn collar. Someone could have tampered with it. A cold shiver ran down Jackson's spine. Someone had tried to erase Titan's identity. Dr. Patel set the scanner down. I'll send the serial number to a few databases, see if anything comes up. But for now, legally, he's unclaimed. Lily hugged Titan tightly. That means he's ours. Dr. Patel smiled but didn't argue. I'll give you antibiotics and pain meds for his wound. Otherwise, he's malnourished but strong. He's a survivor. Jackson forced a smile, shaking the vet's hand. Thanks, Doc. As they left the clinic, the sun peeked through the thinning clouds. But the light did nothing to ease Jackson's nerves. Because as they reached the truck, he spotted something that made his breath hitch. A black SUV parked across the street. The windows were tinted. The engine was running. And even from a distance, Jackson could feel that someone inside was watching them. Titan saw it too. The dog froze, his muscles tightening, his ears flattened. A growl rumbled deep in his throat. Jackson didn't hesitate. He threw the truck door open, ushering Lily and Claire inside. Go, now. Titan jumped in after them, never taking his eyes off the SUV. Jackson slammed the door shut. The SUV didn't move, didn't drive away. It just sat there, watching. Claire's voice was barely a breath. Jackson! He started the truck, pulling out of the parking lot fast. The SUV stayed put, but Jackson knew one thing for sure. This wasn't over. Titan wasn't just any lost dog, and now whoever was after him knew exactly where to find them. Jackson drove fast, faster than he should have. His knuckles were white against the steering wheel, his heartbeat a war drum in his ears. Claire sat rigid in the passenger seat, glancing at the side mirror every few seconds. Lily clutched Titan's fur in the back seat, her little fingers gripping the dog like he was the only thing keeping her safe. The black SUV hadn't followed them. Not yet. But Jackson knew that didn't mean a damn thing. That was them, wasn't it? Claire whispered, still staring at the mirror as if the vehicle might appear at any second. Jackson nodded once. Yeah. Lily's voice was soft. Titan knew. Jackson flicked his eyes to the rearview mirror. Titan was still as a statue, his gaze locked on the road behind them. Every muscle in his body was tense, like he was expecting an attack. Maybe he was. Claire exhaled shakily. Jackson, we can't just go home. I know. His mind was already racing through options. We need to figure out who the hell Titan is before they come knocking again. Lily lifted her head. I told you. He was running from the bad men. Jackson swallowed hard. It wasn't just a child's wild imagination anymore. Everything. The erased microchip, the clawed-up collar, the menacing stranger at their door, the SUV tracking them. Everything pointed to something big, and now they were in the middle of it. Claire's voice trembled. What if they come for him? Jackson tightened his grip on the wheel. Then they'll regret it. The Jensen family didn't go home. Instead, Jackson took a sharp turn, heading toward the one place he knew could give them answers. The police station. It wasn't a big city department, just a small town station with a handful of officers. But Jackson knew one of them well. Deputy Owen Carter, a man Jackson had run into plenty during his years as a firefighter. The kind of guy who still believed in doing things the right way. The kind of man Jackson could trust. As soon as they pulled into the parking lot, Jackson cut the engine. "Claire, stay with Lily and Titan. Keep the doors locked." Claire frowned. "You want me to just sit here while you—" "I just need 5 minutes," Jackson interrupted. "If I don't come back fast, you leave. Got it?" She didn't like it. He saw it in her eyes, but she nodded. Jackson swung the truck door open and stepped out. Titan whimpered. Jackson froze. Slowly, he turned back. The dog had lifted his head from Lily's lap, ears pinned back. His amber eyes locked onto Jackson's. Titan did not want him to go inside. Jackson crouched down, resting a hand on Titan's massive head. "I'll be right back, buddy," he murmured. Titan's stare did not break. It was the kind of look Jackson had only seen once before. A firefighter pinned under rubble, knowing that something was about to collapse. A warning. Jackson hesitated. His gut twisted. And then, the front doors of the police station opened. A man stepped outside, and Jackson felt his blood run cold. It wasn't Owen Carter. It was him. The man from his porch. The one who had knocked in the middle of the night with that slow, deliberate smile. The man who had called Titan valuable. Jackson went rigid. His heartbeat thundered in his ears. The man smirked. And then, he tipped his head in a silent greeting, like he'd been waiting for Jackson to show up. Jackson didn't move. His mind raced, every instinct screaming at him to turn around. That SUV at the vet. That stranger at his house. And now this man standing right outside the damn police station. This wasn't a coincidence. The cops weren't just ignoring what was happening. Someone on the inside was in on it. Jackson slowly took a step back. The man raised his eyebrows. Not running? Not yet. Jackson forced his face into something unreadable, nodding slightly before turning back toward the truck. But every step felt like moving through a trap. Titan's ears were pinned back when Jackson climbed into the driver's seat. The dog let out a low, almost relieved whimper when Jackson shut the door. Claire's voice was frantic. "What happened?" Jackson didn't answer. He started the truck, peeled out of the lot. Lily's little voice was full of fear. "Daddy?" Jackson exhaled. Cold, controlled. "They're in the police department." Claire's sharp intake of breath told him she understood exactly what that meant. Nowhere was safe. Not the vet, not the cops, not home. They were alone. And the people looking for Titan? They were everywhere. Jackson didn't go home. He drove for hours, avoiding main roads, doubling back, making sure they weren't being followed. Claire clutched her phone, knuckles white. "We need a plan." Jackson inhaled through his nose. "We need someone who can dig into that chip, find out who Titan belonged to before they erased him." Claire frowned. "But who?" Jackson glanced at her, and she understood. Only one person could help now. A hacker. Claire exhaled. "You mean Sam?" Jackson nodded. "If there's even a single trace left on that chip, he'll find it." Lily perked up. "Uncle Sam?" Jackson forced a smile. Yeah, kiddo. Claire sighed. He's going to make us pay him in bourbon, isn't he? Jackson smirked. Absolutely. Titan shifted slightly in the back seat. For the first time in hours, the tension in his body loosened. Like he knew, like he felt it. They were finally on the right path. But Jackson didn't miss the way Titan's eyes stayed locked on the rearview mirror. Watching. Waiting. Because the hunt wasn't over. It had only just begun. The sun had started to set by the time Jackson pulled onto the long, winding driveway leading to a rundown cabin deep in the woods. The place was surrounded by towering pines, their dark silhouettes stretching high against the sky, swallowing the last bits of daylight. Claire shifted in her seat, glancing around warily. Are you sure about this? Jackson didn't answer right away. Instead, he kept his eyes on the dirt road ahead, scanning for anything out of place. Even out here, miles from town, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Titan sat up, ears twitching, amber eyes locked on the tree line. He was alert but not afraid. It was like he was waiting for something, or someone. Jackson pulled the truck to a stop in front of the cabin. The place looked abandoned. Weathered wood, a sagging porch, vines creeping up the sides. But Jackson knew better. Claire sighed. You know, normal people just ask for help. They don't drive into the middle of nowhere to meet a criminal. Jackson smirked. Sam's not a criminal. She shot him a look. Fine, he corrected. He's criminal adjacent. Claire rolled her eyes. Jackson stepped out first, scanning the area. No other vehicles, no signs of recent visitors. That was good. But it also meant Sam wasn't expecting them, which meant this was about to get interesting. He walked up to the front porch and knocked 3 times. Silence. Then, the distinct sound of a shotgun being cocked. Jackson didn't even flinch. A voice, low and rough, came from inside. If you're selling cookies, I'm about to put a hole through you. Jackson smirked. Damn, Sam. That's no way to treat family. A pause. Then the door creaked open just an inch. A single eye, bloodshot and suspicious, peered out. The hell are you doing here? Need a favor. Sam muttered a curse under his breath but unlatched the door. It swung open, revealing a disheveled man in his late 40s, wearing a threadbare hoodie and mismatched socks. His beard was overgrown, his hair sticking up in all directions like he'd just rolled out of bed, which, knowing Sam, was probably the case. Sam raked a hand through his hair. You bring bourbon? Jackson lifted a bottle from his jacket pocket. Obviously, Sam sighed, stepping aside. Fine. Get in before you attract trouble. Too late for that. The inside of Sam's cabin was exactly what you'd expect from an off-the-grid hacker. Stacks of computer towers lined the walls, cables snaking across the floor like vines. Multiple monitors flickered with streams of code and news feeds. The place smelled like stale coffee and burnt wires. Sam flopped into his chair, twisting the cap off the bourbon. All right, let's hear it. Jackson wasted no time. He placed Titan's collar and damaged microchip on the desk. Sam's eyebrows lifted. You got this off a dog? Not just any dog, Claire muttered. Sam gave Titan a once-over. The dog sat beside Lily, his posture guarded but still, watching. Waiting. Sam exhaled through his nose. All right, I'll bite. What's so special about Lassie here? Jackson leaned forward. Someone erased his identity. Sam's smirk faded. He picked up the chip, turning it over in his fingers. That's not easy to do. We figured. Sam spun his chair toward his computer and started typing. Let's see if there's anything left. Titan whined. Jackson glanced down. The dog was tense again, ears pinned back. His tail didn't wag. Claire whispered, "He knows something." Sam's fingers moved across the keyboard, hacking through layers of corrupted data. The screen flashed, numbers and sequences flying by. He frowned. "That's weird." Jackson tensed. "What?" Sam cracked his knuckles. "This chip isn't standard pet registration. It's military." Silence. Claire paled. "Excuse me." Sam adjusted his glasses. "Yeah, I've seen this before. It's from a classified K9 unit. These aren't just dogs. They're trained for, well, let's just say a lot more than fetching sticks." Jackson inhaled sharply. "You're telling me Titan was a military dog?" Sam kept typing. "Not just military, black ops. No official records, no owner. These dogs are ghosts." Lily whispered, "That's why the bad men are looking for him." Sam let out a low whistle. "Damn. This dog must have seen some serious stuff." Jackson's throat went dry. "Can you recover the name of his handler?" Sam didn't answer right away. His eyes flicked across the screen. His fingers slowed. Then he leaned back in his chair, rubbing his jaw. Jackson's gut twisted. "What?" Sam exhaled. Titan's handler was listed as deceased. Claire sucked in a breath. Jackson frowned. "Who was it?" Sam hesitated, then turned the screen. A name popped up. Jackson froze. Claire covered her mouth. "No." Lily blinked up at them, confused. "Who's Henry Calloway?" Jackson barely heard her. His ears were ringing. His chest felt tight. He knew that name. Everyone did. Henry Calloway was the whistleblower who leaked classified government files and then mysteriously disappeared. Titan's handler wasn't just any soldier. He was the most wanted man in the country. And if Titan had belonged to him, that meant Titan wasn't just a runaway. He was carrying secrets. Secrets people were willing to kill for. Sam let out a low breath. "Jackson, whatever this dog knows." Titan suddenly stood up. His ears perked, his gaze locked onto the door. Lily whispered, "They found us." Then, boom! The front door exploded. Shouts, flashlights, figures in black tactical gear swarmed the cabin. Jackson lunged for Lily. Claire screamed, and Titan launched, straight at the first man through the door. Teeth bared. A soldier, a weapon, and a dog who knew too much. Chaos erupted. Titan crashed into the first man like a battering ram, his massive body sending the intruder slamming into the floor. A scream of pain tore through the cabin as Titan's teeth sank into the soldier's arm. Deep, unforgiving, unrelenting. The man struggled, but Titan held. Gunfire exploded through the small space. "Get down!" Jackson roared, yanking Lily and Claire behind an overturned table. Sam dove for his desk, slamming his fist onto a panel beneath it. A hiss sounded from the walls. Booby traps. The power cut out. The entire cabin plunged into darkness. Flashlights flickered across the room as the soldiers tried to regain control, but Titan was already moving. Silent. Deadly. Another scream, another man down. Jackson's mind was a war zone. Instincts kicking in fast. They were trapped, outnumbered, outgunned, but not outmatched. He grabbed Sam by the collar. "How many exits?" "2," Sam hissed. Back door leads to the forest. Jackson's jaw clenched. Take Claire and Lily, run. Claire's grip on his arm was fierce. I'm not leaving you. Go, Claire, Jackson roared. Titan let out a feral snarl as another soldier fired blindly in the dark. The bullet missed, but sent wood splintering near Jackson's head. Claire grabbed Lily. Come on, baby! Lily wouldn't move. Her hands clutched Titan's fur, panic in her wood eyes. What about him? Titan turned his head, locking eyes with her, and then, for the first time, he whimpered. It wasn't fear. It wasn't pain. It was goodbye. Lily burst into tears. Titan turned back toward the fight and charged. Jackson's heart split in two. Now! He shoved Claire toward the back. Sam grabbed his laptop and bolted, pushing the back door open. Cold night air rushed in. Claire and Lily disappeared into the trees. Jackson grabbed a knife from Sam's counter, then turned to fight. Titan was a blur. 2 men on the ground. Blood. Groaning. Another had a blade drawn, swinging wildly. Titan dodged, barely. The knife clipped his side. A yelp. Jackson saw red. He lunged, tackling the soldier from behind, driving the knife into his arm. The man screamed. Jackson twisted the blade. Who sent you? The soldier gasped, spitting blood. Too late. Jackson's stomach dropped. More footsteps. More men. A new voice. Cold. Calm. Stand down, Jensen. Jackson's blood turned to ice. He turned slowly. The leader had arrived. The man from the police station. The man from his porch. Standing in the wreckage of Sam's cabin like he owned the place. A silenced pistol in his hand. Titan stood in front of Jackson. Body trembling. Bleeding. But still standing. Still protecting. The man smirked. I warned you, didn't I? Jackson's grip on the knife tightened. I don't scare easy. Oh, I know, the man mused. But let's be honest, Jensen. You're not the real problem here. His cold eyes flicked down to Titan. The German shepherd snarled, taking a step forward. The man raised the gun. No! Jackson moved, but Titan leapt. The gun fired. A sharp crack echoed through the night. Titan's body twisted midair. Then he collapsed. The snarl cut short. Jackson froze. Everything stopped. Titan's body hit the floor. His amber eyes, still locked on Jackson, filled with something fierce, something final. And then the light left them. No! Jackson's roar shook the walls. He lunged. A flash of movement. A gun swung toward him. And then another gunshot. The leader staggered, blinking, confused. Blood bloomed across his chest. Another shot. His head snapped back, and then he was gone. Jackson whipped around. Sam stood there, shaking, smoking pistol in his hand. His breath was ragged. You don't get to die yet, Sam muttered. Jackson didn't hesitate. He dropped to his knees beside Titan. The dog's breathing was shallow. Blood pooled beneath him. Jackson's hands shook. Stay with me, buddy. Stay with me. Titan's ears twitched. His gaze flicked toward Jackson, and his tail moved. A single weak thump against the floor. Jackson's chest cracked open. Sam knelt beside him. We need to move. More are coming. Jackson clenched his jaw, his vision blurred. Then, through gritted teeth, we're not leaving him. Titan wasn't done yet, not by a long shot. Jackson scooped Titan into his arms, ignoring the blood soaking through his shirt. The dog's body was limp, but his chest still rose and fell in shallow, fragile breaths. Sam cursed under his breath, glancing toward the shattered doorway. "We gotta go, man. Now!" Jackson didn't hesitate. He ran. The night swallowed them as they burst into the woods, the cold air burning Jackson's lungs. Branches whipped past his face, but he didn't stop. Didn't dare. Claire and Lily had a head start, but the gunfire and chaos had surely slowed them down. Jackson's arms ached from Titan's weight. The dog had always been solid muscle, but now he felt too light, like life was already slipping away from him. Jackson grit his teeth. Not yet. Up ahead, a flash of movement. Claire. She had Lily clutched against her chest, her face streaked with tears and mud. Lily's eyes widened when she saw Titan. "No!" She kicked and broke free before Claire could stop her. Lily ran, her tiny legs flying through the dirt. She crashed into Jackson's side, sobbing as her hands clutched at Titan's fur. "He's gonna be okay, right?" Jackson's throat closed. Titan gave a faint whimper. Lily gasped, pulling back. "He knows what I'm saying. He's still here." Jackson forced himself to move. "We have to get to the truck." Sam led the way, scanning the woods like the paranoid tech genius he was. "Your house isn't safe. My place is compromised. We need a backup plan." "Hospital," Claire gasped. "Titan, he needs a vet. They'll be waiting for us," Sam interrupted, already shaking his head. "We need somewhere off the radar." Jackson's mind raced. Somewhere safe. Somewhere Titan could get help without alerting the very people hunting them. And then it hit him. The old fire station. Sam nearly tripped. "The what?" Jackson kept running. "The station I used to work at before it shut down. The building's still there. No security, no cameras. No one watching." Claire nodded, breathless. "It's close, we can make it." Sam hesitated, then cursed. "Fine, but if we die, I'm haunting you." They tore through the woods, the darkness stretching around them. Titan shuddered in Jackson's arms, his breath coming in weaker and weaker. Jackson pushed harder. "Just hold on, buddy. Just hold on." The fire station was a crumbling relic of the past. The garage doors were rusted, the windows coated in grime. But to Jackson, it had never looked more like a sanctuary. Sam jimmied the lock, and they rushed inside. Dust clouded the air. Old equipment sat abandoned in the corners, long forgotten. Jackson cleared a table with one sweep of his arm and gently laid Titan down. Lily clung to the dog's paw, her fingers trembling. Jackson turned to Claire. "Towels, water, anything clean." Claire didn't argue. She ran. Sam cracked open his laptop. "I need to check if anyone's tracking us." Jackson barely heard him. His focus was on Titan. The dog's amber eyes were half-lidded. His breaths came in slow, uneven shudders. Jackson pressed both hands against the wound. Blood seeped through his fingers. Too much. Jackson's voice cracked. "Come on, buddy. Stay with me." Titan's tail twitched. Jackson clenched his jaw. He couldn't lose him. Not now. Not like this. Lily sobbed. "Fix him, Daddy." Claire burst back in, arms full of supplies. Jackson grabbed the cleanest rag and pressed it against the wound. Titan didn't flinch, and that scared Jackson more than anything. Sam glanced up from his screen, his face ashen. "We've got a bigger problem." Jackson barely turned. Unless it's a way to save this dog, I don't want to hear it. Sam swallowed. It's not just the people who attacked us. Jackson stilled. What? Sam turned the laptop around. A breaking news alert flashed across the screen. Jackson, Jensen, and family. Fugitives. Jackson's stomach dropped. Claire sucked in a sharp breath. Oh my God, Sam scrolled. They're saying you stole classified government property, that you kidnapped an asset. Jackson's voice turned to ice. Titan. Sam nodded. They're spinning this hard. The cops, the military, hell, even the feds are involved now. Claire's breath shook. What does that mean for us? Sam leaned back. It means the second you step out of this station, you're the most wanted man in the country. Silence. Titan's ragged breath filled the room. Lily hiccuped through her tears. So we can't go home? Jackson ran a hand down his face, rage simmering beneath his skin. This wasn't just about Titan. They had set him up. They had turned his family into fugitives. They had tried to erase Titan's past, and they had failed. Jackson turned back to the dog. Titan's eyes cracked open, just a fraction. And in them, Jackson saw something fierce. Titan wasn't giving up, so neither would he. Jackson exhaled, looking at his family. If they want to fight, he said, voice deadly calm, we'll give them one. The world had turned against them. Jackson Jensen was no longer a husband, a father, or a man trying to protect his family. He was a fugitive. They had erased the truth, twisted the story, and turned the people he loved into targets. And Titan? Titan was the key to everything, and he was dying. Jackson gritted his teeth, pressing harder against the bullet wound. His hands were slick with blood, his heart pounding like a war drum. Titan's breaths were shallow, but he was still here, still fighting. Lily sobbed into his fur. Daddy, fix him, please! Jackson refused to let this be the end. Claire's voice was sharp. Jackson, if we don't get help... Jackson's mind raced. Hospitals were out. They'd be arrested before Titan even made it through the doors. They needed a medic, someone who didn't ask questions, someone who wouldn't turn them in. And Jackson knew exactly where to find one. He turned to Sam. You still got contacts in the underground? Sam snorted. Do I look like I have friends? Jackson's patience snapped. Sam, I swear to... Sam sighed, already typing. All right. There's a guy. Used to patch up mercs, no names, no questions. But we have to move fast. Jackson nodded. Then he turned to Claire. Take Lily. Stay here. Her face hardened. Not a chance. Jackson exhaled. He should have known better. Then keep your head down. He grabbed a blanket, wrapped Titan up as best he could, and lifted him into his arms. The dog let out a weak whimper. Jackson clenched his jaw. Hang in there, buddy, he murmured. I'm not letting you go. The drive was brutal. Every radio station blasted their names. Every checkpoint felt like a trap waiting to spring. Jackson took back roads, dirt paths, abandoned highways. He didn't let himself think, didn't let himself breathe. Titan's weight pressed against his lap. The dog barely moved, but he was still alive. And as long as Titan was breathing, Jackson would not stop. The medic's hideout was in an auto shop, a front for underground work. Sam knocked on the back door, muttering something under his breath. A steel panel slid open. A gruff voice muttered, "You got 5 seconds to explain why I shouldn't shoot you." Sam held up his hands. "Relax, Dean. It's me." The door creaked open, revealing a man who looked like he had seen too much war. Dean's eyes flicked to Jackson, then to the bloody bundle in his arms. "Hell." His expression darkened. "Get inside." Titan was placed on an old metal table. The room smelled like oil and whiskey. Dean pulled on gloves, inspecting the wound. "Damn, this dog's been through hell." Jackson's voice was raw. "Can you save him?" Dean didn't answer immediately. He grabbed a scalpel, cut away the bullet-ridden fur. "You're lucky. Bullet missed anything vital. But if he doesn't get fluids, he won't make it." Jackson exhaled. "Then do it." Dean muttered a curse, then grabbed an IV bag. "You better hope I don't regret this." Jackson hoped so too, because if Titan died, someone was going to pay. Hours passed. Jackson refused to leave Titan's side. The dog's chest rose and fell, his pulse weak but there. Dean wiped his hands. "He's stable, but he needs time." Jackson nodded, relief crashing over him like a wave. Then the door burst open. Claire and Lily rushed in. Lily sprinted to Titan's side. "Is he okay?" Jackson brushed a hand over her hair. "He's strong, kiddo. He's gonna make it." Lily sniffled, pressing a small kiss to Titan's fur. "I knew it." Claire turned to Jackson, her face pale. "Jackson," she whispered, "they found us." Jackson's blood went cold. Sam stormed in, laptop under his arm. "We have a huge problem." Jackson's fists clenched. "Bigger than the government hunting us?" Sam exhaled sharply. "Yeah, because I found out who's really behind this." Jackson narrowed his eyes. "Who?" Sam set the laptop on the table. The screen flashed. A name appeared, and Jackson's heart stopped. Because it wasn't just any name. It was a name he knew. A name he trusted. Sheriff Wyatt Kane. The same man who had trained Jackson. The same man who had helped raise him. The same man who had betrayed them all. Claire's hand flew to her mouth. No. Jackson's pulse pounded. The government wasn't the real threat. Wyatt Kane was. And he was coming for Titan. For them. For everything. Jackson stood, his jaw tightening. If he wants a war... He looked down at Titan, still weak, still bleeding, but alive. Titan's amber eyes flicked open. His tail moved. He knew, he understood. Jackson clenched his fists. Then we give him one. Jackson stood in the dimly lit garage, fists clenched. Titan's weak breathing the only sound he could hear. Sheriff Wyatt Kane, the man who had trained him, the man he had trusted, the man who had betrayed him. Now Kane wasn't just after Titan. He was after Jackson's family. Claire gripped his arm. "Jackson, we can't keep running." He looked at her. Looked at Lily, who refused to leave Titan's side. Then he looked at the dog, the soldier, the survivor, who had been fighting for them since the day he collapsed on their doorstep. No more running. Jackson exhaled. "We take the fight to them." Sam adjusted his glasses. "That's either brilliant or suicidal." Jackson grabbed a shotgun off the rack. "Maybe both." Sheriff Kane was expecting Jackson to stay hidden. He didn't expect him to walk into the lion's den. Jackson drove straight into town under the cover of darkness. parking just outside the sheriff's office. Sam hacked the surveillance cameras, wiping their movements. Titan, still weak but standing, moved beside Jackson like a ghost in the night. Lily had whispered to him before they left, "Come back to me." And Titan had given her one single lick on the hand. A promise. Jackson stepped inside, weapon raised. Wyatt Kane sat at his desk, waiting. "You always were too stubborn to quit," Kane said, smiling. "But you've made a mistake coming here." Jackson didn't hesitate. "No, Wyatt, you did." Behind him, Titan growled. Then, Sam killed the power. The room plunged into darkness. Titan attacked first. The office exploded into gunfire. Titan ripped through Kane's men, using every last ounce of strength he had. Jackson took down 2 guards, pummeling them into the floor. Then, Kane ran. Jackson chased him into the alley, breathing hard. Rain fell, cold and merciless. Kane turned, gun raised, but Titan lunged. The dog's jaws locked around Kane's arm. A gunshot rang out, but Titan didn't let go. Jackson moved fast, a single punch straight to Kane's jaw. The sheriff collapsed. Titan stood over him, snarling. Jackson grabbed Kane by the collar, voice low and lethal. "This is over." Kane's face twisted in rage. "You think you've won?" He laughed. "You don't know what Titan really is, what he's capable of." Jackson's gut tightened. "What does that mean?" Kane spat blood. "That dog was trained for black ops. He was meant to kill. He's not a pet, Jackson. He's a weapon." Jackson looked down at Titan. The dog's amber eyes met his, steady, unbroken, full of loyalty. Titan had every chance to kill Kane, but he hadn't. He had waited for Jackson's command. Titan wasn't a weapon. He was a protector, and he had already chosen his family. Jackson turned back to Kane. "You're wrong." Then, he knocked him out cold. Wyatt Kane was arrested. The evidence Sam found, Kane's involvement in erasing Henry Calloway, his corrupt ties to the government, his illegal operations, was leaked to the press. The truth spread like wildfire. Titan's past was no longer a secret, but neither was the fact that he was free. Sam smirked as he handed Jackson a certificate of ownership. "Congrats, the government just lost custody of their military asset." Claire exhaled sharply. "That means—" Jackson looked at Titan. The dog tilted his head. Lily grinned. "He's ours!" Titan's tail wagged, stronger than it had in days. Lily threw her arms around him, whispering, "I told you you'd come back." Titan pressed his nose against her cheek. A promise kept. The town slowly forgot the chaos. Life moved on, but Titan stayed. He watched over them. He slept beside Lily's bed. He waited at the front porch for Jackson to come home from work. He wasn't a soldier anymore. He was family. And if anyone ever tried to take that away again, they'd have to go through him first. Thanks for watching.